was already living here and let my father stay with him for a while. Through my Uncle George, my father was introduced to our cultural organization here in America, who helped him make connections, apply for college, find his first job, and adjust to life in a completely different culture than he was used to. The Cultural Association helped him get started on his new life. My Uncle George would bring my father with him to the annual Summer Cultural Groups Festival, and later, he would bring me. It was incredible to see so many people of all ages laughing and celebrating with food and song and dance. It brought back the best feelings of home and gave my father the opportunity to pass his culture, language, and values on to me. My father and Uncle George were very close, so when George died last year, my father wanted to honor his wishes to be buried with a traditional ceremony back at his birthplace. My father told me that because Uncle George had cultural group life insurance, he was able to afford to bring George home and have the traditional burial George wanted. Though my father had been able to honor my Uncle George's wishes, it got me thinking about my own family. One day, I'd have to make the same arrangements for my own parents, and my wife's parents as well. Of course, we would want to bring them home and honor their wishes, but it would be a financial hardship for our family. There were a lot of things to think about, even though I really didn't want to think about them at all. When my father told me about cultural group life insurance, he told me it's intended to help families when they need it the most. It's not tied to an employer, so no matter where my career takes me, I'll always have coverage. The more people who participate and the younger they are, the more it helps keep the insurance premiums down for the entire association. Because my parents have cultural group term life insurance, there will be money available to help me provide the kind of service I want to give my parents. And by joining, I can put my mind at ease and continue to celebrate our traditions into the future. With cultural group life insurance, I can worry less and spend more of my time celebrating with the people who matter most to me.
C'est encore Yves Kenao, c'est toujours Yves Kenao qui revient. Cette fois-ci, pour vous dire que Tempo Afrique TV vous offre plus de 4000 chaînes de télévision. Les chaînes européennes, les chaînes américaines, les chaînes asiatiques, les chaînes africaines. À un prix imbattable. À un prix imbattable. Tenez-vous bien. $185 pour 12 mois, inclus le box. Alors, où est-ce que vous pouvez trouver mieux que ça si ce n'est pas sur Tempo Afrique TV? Mesdames, Messieurs, appelez seulement le 612 804 0295 et vous serez servi. Vous serez agréablement surpris de voir plus de 4000 chaînes de télévision rouler sur votre écran comme ça et vous choisissez laquelle vous voulez. Alors mesdames, n'hésitez pas. N'hésitez surtout pas et ne faites pas compter. Prenez votre téléphone, prenez-le tout de suite et appelez le 612, le 804, le 02 95. Nous sommes là, ici à Tempo TV, pour rendre votre vie simple et agréable. Alors, saisissez l'occasion. $185 pour toute une année, pour 12 mois, inclus le box. Quoi de mieux que ça?
So do we start? For those who do not know me, I'm an attorney and co-founder of Premium Law Firm. We are an immigration law office and we assist clients within and outside the United States who are interested in the U.S. immigration laws. The presentation today will be for only informational purposes only. If you feel that you have additional questions after the presentation, or you have legal questions, please feel free to contact me at 713-730-2900. So we can now start. So what is a Form I-130? A Form I-130 is an alien relative petition. So what does this mean? It's just a petition between which a petitioner will file for a beneficiary, and that's your relative who is planning to come to the United States to live permanently. So it's a petition to establish the existence of that relationship. So you, the petitioner, will be petitioning for your relative who is the beneficiary. And the I-130 does not confer a green card status, but does not mean that when it is approved, you have a green card. But what it does mean is that it establishes that you are either the spouse, the child, the parent of the petitioner. It just establishes the relationship, and that's it. So when it is approved, it then allows you to apply for your green card. And this will depend on where you are applying from. If you are in the United States, it'll be the adjustment of status. If you're outside the United States, it will be by consular processing, and that's by filing an immigrant application. So having said that, the next question will be, who is a petitioner? So a petitioner can be a United States citizen or a lawful permanent resident. And the petitioner will usually file for a beneficiary. So who is a beneficiary? A beneficiary will be an eligible relative. So I guess the question will be, how do I know if my relative is eligible? So to that, I will divide them into two groups. You'll have the beneficiary of a United States citizen and the beneficiary of a lawful permanent resident. For the beneficiary of a United States citizen, they're divided into two groups. The first group is the immediate relative, and an immediate relative usually are the spouse of the United States citizen, the unmarried child under 21 years of the United States citizen. And if the United States citizen is a child who is 21 years and older, wanting to file an immigrant petition for the parents, that child has to be at least 21 years. So these are the immediate relatives. So the difference really between an immediate relative and the second group, that's the preference category or preference relatives, are essentially about the availability of visa numbers. For the immediate relatives, immigrant visas are always available. For the preference relatives, they have to wait till an immigrant visa becomes available, and this will depend on when they file. So for the preference categories, there are usually about 226,000 visas available in a fiscal year, a minimum of that in a fiscal year. But the immediate relatives are not subject to that limitation. So now, who are the preference relatives? The preference relatives of a United States citizens are: 1, the unmarried, we'll call it son and daughter, of a United States citizen who is over 21 years and older. You also have in that category the married son and daughter of a United States citizen of any age. Also in that category are the brother, or it's either the brother or sister, or brothers and sisters of a United States citizen. So all these are the preference categories of the United States citizen, and all these are those the United States citizen can petition for. So having said that, we'll now go to who are the beneficiaries of the lawful permanent resident. So first off, it has to be an eligible relative. So the permanent resident, lawful permanent resident, can petition for his spouse, his or her spouse. He or she can also petition for his or her unmarried child under 21 years, and he or her can petition for the unmarried child who is 21 years and older. So these are the three groups the lawful permanent resident can apply for. So you'll notice that I did not say anything about immediate relative when it comes to permanent residents, the lawful permanent residents, because now they do not have lawful permanent, they don't have immediate relatives to petition for. It is only the United States citizen who can petition for an immediate relative. So what does that mean? It means that the lawful permanent residents, if you're applying for your family members or your relatives, you have to wait for a visa number to become available before they can adjust status. But you can always apply for the I-130, which is to establish the relationship. So that's where you'll always want to start. So having said that, I will now go over those who cannot become eligible relatives. So those whom the United States citizen or the lawful permanent resident cannot apply or petition for, that's file an I-130 for. So this group are as follows. 1, you have the grandparents, you have the grandchildren, you have the uncle, you have the aunts, you have the nieces, you have the nephews, you have the cousins, you have the parents-in-law. You also have the brother and sister of a lawful permanent resident. You also have the parents of a lawful permanent resident. And you also have the married son or daughter of a lawful permanent resident. In addition to these groups, if you're filing for a stepchild and you're a U.S. citizen, you want to make sure that the marriage between you and your spouse took place before that stepchild turned the age of 18 years. If that child is over 18 years, you cannot petition for that child under the I-130. Also, if you are applying for an adopted child, you'd want to make sure that you file the petition before you adopted that child, and that child would have been less than 16 years before the adoption. So these are groups where you cannot apply for I-130, or you can petition for I-130 for any of these people. However, sometimes the exceptions apply, and that you'll have to contact an attorney to see if there's any way or if there are exceptions that may apply in your situation. So having discussed that, I will now go over on how you can apply for a Form I-130. So the two ways of applying for a Form I-130 are: one, you can apply for the I-130 by itself, or you can wait for the approval of one of the I-130 before applying for the adjustment of status. So what does this mean? It really depends on where you are applying from. If you are applying from the United States, in some situations, you can apply with your adjustment of status application. That is, you can file those concurrently. However, if you are applying, if your relative is outside the United States, you can now apply starting with the I-130, which has to be approved first before your relative can now apply for the immigrant visa or immigrant application. So those are ways of applying for the I-130. Now, if you are in the United States and you are married, or you are planning to file for your spouse, in addition to the I-130, you also have to file the I-130A, I-130A. So that is for your spouse. You have to file. It's only for those who are filing for their spouses. Before you file, there are also additional documents, required supporting documents you need to file along with your petition. So make sure that you're filing those. If you're doing that yourself, or if an attorney is doing that, the attorney will know what to do. So that's it about how to apply for the I-130.